Well, it wasn't quite the victory over the USA that we were all hoping for, but it was a much improved performance after the 4-0 loss to Japan to start the She Believes Cup as the Matildas fell by 2 goals to 1 against the Americans, the hosts of the She Believes Cup in Glendale, Arizona. My name is Poletti. Joining me today for this reaction video is Lockie. And Lockie, I'm a lot happier this morning. I don't know about you, but I think this is when I said in our preview that what I wanted to see against Japan was a good performance, even if the result didn't quite turn out that way. This is exactly the sort of game I had in mind. It's just a shame it came about 72 hours too late.
Yeah, better for sure. And there's probably something to be said about the perspective of coming off a loss against Japan like that as to why a 2-1 loss against the Americans and a second to third string Americans that looks so good or feels so good, which is probably a different conversation. But yeah, it was definitely a better performance. Everything had the potential to unravel quite severely after about 45 seconds, but credit to them, it didn't get into their heads too much and they fought back into the game and significantly improved performance.
Yeah, so Tom Samani sort of hinted in the lead up to this game that he was going to, mix up the starting side a little bit, and that's exactly what he did. He went with a 4-2-3-1 to start with, which shifted throughout the game, but starting side, Tegan Micah got the nod in goals. Charlie Grant at left back, Steph Catley moving centrally to pair with Kennedy, Ellie Carpenter, Winona Heatley into the midfield, who dropped back into the defensive line when Steph Catley came off. Kyra Cooney-Cross, Caitlin Ford, and Razzo sitting as slightly deeper wingers, almost sort of sitting in the same line as what Mary Fowler does as a 10. And Holly McNamara getting her first start in 1,122 days since the 2022 Asian Cup, and she was playing as the lone striker who sadly didn't have a lot of work to do in this game because of the way that the Matildas did struggle at points, going until the 35th minute before they got their first shot off, which is a lot better than 87, as was the case against Japan. But, she stayed at striker. She didn't drift around. She knew what her role was. She stuck to it, and she made sure that she was where she needed to be to do her best job. Were the Matildas actually able to get forward? And they got forward at times. They just didn't have that finishing product in the first half.
Yeah, there was probably maybe from like half an hour on into like the back end of the first half where the Matildas probably had the better of the game, to be honest. And I thought McNamara was good for the opportunities that she was provided. Obviously, like the different profile to someone like a Michelle Heyman who scored the goal when she came on, having that tall runner in the box for a headed goal brought a kind of different avenue to goal, which sometimes playing a game like this, if you're going to get the ball in wide areas with those kind of two deeper wide wingers, it means if they're sitting deeper, they're going to get on the ball more often and have the chance to play the ball in, right? So that combo seemed to have worked better. It's nothing against McNamara. She can't do anything about her height, but, I thought she played well and good for her to get back on the the team sheet, the starting team sheet after so long. But I think the first name you mentioned there, Tegan Micah, for me, that she's already done enough in one game to say that she should be the new number one for Australia. Usually you probably couldn't say that after just one game, but just the complete disparity in quality between Mackenzie Arnold's performance in the first game against Japan and Tegan Micah here kept them in the game on multiple occasions. That save in about the 88th minute was probably the best of the lot to keep it at 2-1. I thought she was superb and definitely deserves to hold on to that spot.
Yeah, so the first goal and actually the second goal and the potential third goal, which came in the 10th minute, the third one, the one that wasn't awarded because the offside flag went up, and rightly so. I'm not putting Tegan Micah at fault for any of those goals. I think it was just a case of the defensive line got a little bit mixed up and maybe the positioning could have been slightly better, but at the same time, the defense has to do their job, right?
I think Ellie Carpenter backs off a fair bit in that first goal and doesn't put enough pressure on the top of the box. And when you're that close to goal, I feel like you just have to get something on the body, a little bit of physicality, because if you allow someone as good as the Americans to have time and space at the international level, they're going to be able to play through you. And the second goal that did go in, and actually counted. I think that was just a really good line splitting pass. It's I couldn't put the finger at anyone specifically. Maybe there's some team shape things there. I don't know, but no, definitely not on Micah. I don't think.
Yeah, so the Australians conceded 42 seconds into the game to Lynn Biondolo. It gave some very uncomfortable flashbacks to those who remember that game in November of 2021 in Sydney, where they conceded to Ashley Hatch just 24 seconds in. You might remember that game as Jess Nash's one and only Matildas cap to date. She was 17 years old at the time and really thrown into the deep end against the then world-ranked number one USA. At least no one can blame the Wiggles this time, right, Lockie?
I think I'm missing your reference here.
So for those who remember that one, the Wiggles did sort of like the pre-game entertainment for that game, and then sang the national anthem. And there were some people when they conceded 24 seconds in who tried to blame the Wiggles being around as sort of like it's a distraction, it's this, it's that for the Matildas conceding, as opposed to it just being, no, this is the Americans.
Yeah, no, I don't think that argument has a lot of basis in it. I do think, though, like you say, throwback to when the Americans, were kind of this big powerhouse. It's crazy that we're talking about a team that's come in under Emma Hayes, a little bit of a refresh since going out in that shootout to Sweden, I want to say it was, in the World Cup. Emma Hayes has come in, has not lost a game in over 20 matches now, something like that. They're the Olympic champions and they're playing like second to third string teams at the She Believes Cup and still holding on to this miraculous unbeaten record. So it goes to show what kind of quality this team has. And it's no surprise that the Aussies have won one game over them. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that was the 2017 Tournament of Nations. That was obviously prior to the 2018 Asian Cup. And Australia does have a habit of performing well against the USA in the year prior to an Asian Cup, and then having poor results at said Asian Cup the next year. So hopefully that's not a foreboding for 2026. There's still a lot of football to be played between now and then. Some of the first half positives here. So for me, they looked like they were able to get forward a lot easier than they did against Japan. They looked like a side that had played together before, which is weird given just the rotation in the starting lineup. But it also looks similar to how the Matildas have played the Americans before. Like, yes, there's a clear quality gap, but it's not something the Matildas couldn't chase down with a little luck, as we saw with Michelle Heyman's goal in the 80th minute. And so I don't know what your thoughts on that first half were, Lockie, but I was very, very impressed.
Yeah, I think it had to do slightly with the style of game that was being played, right? We think back to the last couple of years of the Tony Gustafsson era, and a lot of his troubles were trying to turn the team into someone that could always transition very well into a team that could dominate with the ball and play through blocks and really put their emphasis on a game of football. When they were playing against Japan, they were asked to play out from the back, and Japan were happy to sit back and then press as soon as the right moment came. Whereas the Americans, the press wasn't as intensive. So that first kind of few passes out and getting the ball into the midfield came a lot easier in this game. And when they had the ball, they probably had 2/3 possession throughout the entire match, right? And it opened up those moments in transition, which is exactly how we got our goal, right? So I think it was a style of match that suited Australia better, but absolutely there was improvement across the park. And just being able to have a little bit more time to breathe probably helped them out and settle into the game and get some passing combinations working again. Obviously, there's still a long way to go. This is a minor improvement from what we want to see, but positive signs.
Yep, and then to the second half, just to continue on those positive signs, that looked like the best 10-minute period to start the second half that the Matildas have played in their last two games, and that isn't even including the Michelle Heyman goal. I don't know what Tom Samani said at halftime, but whatever he said, it clearly worked, and they just came out with a lot more attacking intent, a lot more energy, a lot more focus, and I think it caught the Americans off guard. And yes, the Matildas didn't get a shot on target in that time frame, but they did get a couple of near chances that on another day might have gone in, and I don't remember whether the Holly Mack sort of like pressuring the keeper and causing the error was in that 10-minute period. But like it was in and around that, and so it's like, you know, that's good intent there from the Aussies.
Yeah, I think intent's a good word, right? It's whenever you talk about, you know, kicking off from the start, or, you know, it's 0-0 half time, like, let's get back at them, right? It's all about character and mindset and mentality, and it's something that we both agreed was probably lacking in the first game against Japan. You know, reportedly they had this players only meeting to, you know, talk a little bit about probably that kind of stuff, right? It's like, where are we at? It's like the football is the football, but where are we as a team? What are we fighting for? Because that we didn't have the fight against Japan, but it was clear, as you say, from that kind of half-time point, it was like, well, we had a little bit of a false start in the first half with that goal. Let's not let that happen again. Let's go out and actually really push hard for something. And then, yeah, I think the mentality improvement was good to see as well.
Whenever I hear the term players-only meeting, I always get concerned because it's not something you really hear about in football. It's usually what you hear in American sports like the NFL, you know, Major League Baseball, or, you know, all those sorts of things. And it usually doesn't end well for the coach, who usually find themselves on the outer and out of a job in the not-too-distant future. But we know Tom Samani is only the interim coach. We know he's not going to be doing this forever. So I think less concern, you know, in that respect from me here. But despite, you know, the improved performance, how crucial is it that, you know, the Matildas find that coach before the next window in April?
How crucial is it? I don't know. I don't think it will happen. As we said, I think the writing on the wall is that it will be at the end of the current season when someone comes off contract. I think the later we go, it obviously hurts. So I talked last week about, you know, there's something to say for timing your run and having that momentum. But what I will say is that in the interim, I agree with you. It's actually good that the players are taking some leadership here, because when we go in to the Asian Cup in, what was it, January or February, something next year?
February, yeah.
February. They're the people that are here now that are going to be at that tournament, right? So I don't know Tom Samani's motivational abilities in terms of his player management as a coach, but whatever that is, it's not going to be there. So there has to be some responsibility on the players. I'm sure Steph Catley is the team captain. We should hopefully see Sam Kerr back in the next few months as well. She's a big leader in this group, even when she isn't playing. There has to be the responsibility of the players to push this team forward as well. So hopefully that is going in the right direction. Hopefully everything's going in the right direction. Hopefully we can score some more goals, play some better football, and win some games, because we're going to need that kind of motivation and push towards this Asian Cup.
So you touched on Sam Kerr there, and we got a lot of response after the Japan game in, you know, both on social media and the YouTube comments for the reaction video we did to that. How important is it for you that Sam Kerr comes back into this squad when she's ready? Because, like, for me, everyone just seems to think it's just going to be this magic bullet, but it's we've got to remember she hasn't played in almost 18 months. She's been injured. She's gone through hell with, you know, this court case. And I think that there's a good chance we just don't necessarily see her back at her best. And are we better off maybe having the two strikers of Heyman and Holly McNamara if she's fit, rather than perhaps redesettling the lineup? That's not the term I'm looking for, but you understand what I mean there, right?
I think the core Matildas fans, I think, have forgotten how good Sam Kerr is a little bit, just a little bit. And I think people who are on the surface, who maybe paid attention to the team a little bit here and there, probably watched a few games of the World Cup and probably not a lot since, that's been the easy thing to say, oh, Sam Kerr's out, wait till we get Sam Kerr back, right? And they probably are overestimating what her impact on the team as well. But to the same end, I think that's probably pushed core Matildas fans like you and me the other way and saying, well, you know, there's the team, since the World Cup, Sam Kerr hasn't really played. This new version of the popular Matildas is one that Sam Kerr is not really a part of. And I think that those kind of people will be surprised about her impact. No, she's obviously been around out of the game for a long time now, so she won't come back straight at her best. We can't expect that. But she is an incredible footballer. She's scored a lot of goals for club and country all over the world. She was setting records in Australia and the US at the same time. Like, she is some player. So will she change the team's fortunes completely? No, but I think she'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with your assessment there. I think, as I said, my concern is just, is she going to be able to get back to her best? We know that ACL injuries and the like aren't always easy to come back from. Although, if you ask Holly McNamara, she's come back from what? This is the third one that she's come back from now. So, like, maybe some people can just do it better than others, I guess. Cap 235 was Alana Murphy in this game. She got substituted on, and Lainey Fryer not long afterwards for cap 236. And we said prior to the November December window that Tom Samani loves the cheeky cap, and he he's shown it again. He brought these players in, and he's not afraid to use them.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a period, right, where the results don't really matter for Tom. So hearing him speak at press conferences and in interviews, he loves this team and he wants to do the best for it, right? And he knows that whatever he does now is setting the platform for hopefully some success at the Asian Cup. So to be able to expose different young players to first team football in international setting is quite valuable looking forward. Because as we've talked about, we know whenever a new coach comes in, things are going to change in terms of the setup. Maybe some different personnel is preferred, but the more data and the more evidence that new coach has to work with, the better. So yeah, fabulous to see another debut today, and I'm sure there's a few more waiting in the wings as well.
I'm sure there is. Lainey Fryer, along with Sian Fryer, they became the first twins to play for the Australian women's national team, and just the second pair of sisters to do so. So a little bit of history there with Lainey Fryer's debut. I just quickly want to wrap up on the Michelle Heyman goal. So it's the first shot on target for, quick math, 170 minutes of football plus stoppage time, and it ended up going in. So first shot on target, first goal of the She Believes Cup for the Matildas. I know Michelle Heyman's getting older and there's every chance she won't make the World Cup, but how important is it to just keep Michelle Heyman around?
Yeah, it's a good question. You and I were talking probably at this point last year, right? Really campaigning for Heyman's inclusion back into the Matildas squad to get ready for the Olympics, and with Sam Kerr's absence, her being the kind of player, well, to be fair, and Holly McNamara's absence, that she would be the player to really help us going into the Olympics. And she proved pretty important throughout that campaign, through those qualifiers and at the Olympics themselves. With Holly McNamara back fit and such an exciting young player, it hasn't taken her much time at all to tear away the dub as she's got back into it. With Sam Kerr coming back as well, does she play as much of a role? Probably not. But what we have shown, and this game is a perfect example, is that she offers something different. So if you're going to play a one striker formation, then depending on squad sizes, she's probably somewhere on the fringe of it. But if you want to move around a little bit, will you say, yeah, okay, Holly Mack, really good with her feet, low down, can dribble around people, but Heyman, you can stick it in, she'll win a header and she'll score a goal that way. So it's an interesting question. It probably goes down to system and how you want to score your goals, but she definitely has the ability to, for sure.
And it's a question we'll get into more detail on this week's episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network. Drops every Wednesday morning, Australian Eastern Daylight Time, on both podcasting platforms and here on YouTube. This, of course, our YouTube exclusive reaction episode of USA 2, Matildas 1 from the She Believes Cup. Lockie, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
No worries, Poletti.
All right, my name is Poletti, and as I said, we'll be back on Wednesday for our normal weekly podcast, and we'll also be back on Thursday afternoon to recap Australia versus Colombia from the She Believes Cup. Thank you very much for tuning in. Goodbye.